The following topic is courtesy of MSN. It just popped right up in my face. I saw it and I thought, this kind of aligns with the things I'll be talking about in the channel, so let's see what it says. American hustle culture is dying. Millennials are willing to take a 20% pay cut for a better work-life balance. Right off the bat, I can tell you that work-life balance is something valid that people have concerns over, that people express themselves with frustration toward. I experienced some of it myself, and mind you, I have remained a worker who hasn't even made it to a full-time status. And one of the reasons being I didn't see it feasible. And somehow I was able to get away with avoiding such a status because of the overly simplistic life that I live, I guess, especially as someone who knew better than to try to have goals that were too complicated, because I just knew that there wasn't going to be a way for me to make it because I needed support and intervention and all that shit that you guys know about. I'm not going to dwell on here. But it's not exactly easy because I know that the future is gonna be here before I know it, and I wouldn't have exactly made a strong plan. Honestly, there is no plan for me, but this is one of those reasons. I looked at it as opposed to getting involved with something that I know is going to bring me problems. I avoided the problem in the first place, and now I see that people are moving toward, marching toward a lifestyle in which work is not as intrusive as it's always been. And that was pretty much my goal. I always said, I don't see the point of me exploiting myself at work if work is not ultimately what's going to bring me meaning. So that's where I come from with that topic right there. After conducting 16,086 online interviews in 16 countries, the 2024 trends survey, 60% of American millennials would take a 20% salary cut for better work-life balance. Baby boomers were the last willing generation at 33%. And American millennials are over hustle culture. I think that hustle culture began as something that looked like it could liberate you from the chain of being stuck on one career path for the rest of your life. I don't see that as a bad thing. I think you should be allowed to have other pursuits, other dreams, other things that you wish to indulge in, and for it to not feel like you're making a mistake because now your finances is going to be affected, your retirement is going to be affected, things like that. That's just a very pressing way to live. And these boomers, when you run into some of them, that's usually their attitude. Like, I'll never forget my father. My father was one of them to say something like, to me, the most important thing is my job, not even family, the job. And he stuck to it because he wanted to retire early, and he did. But what was the price he had to pay? He does not get along with anyone in the family. We don't care for that clown. It's that attitude of work defining you. Now we are a generation that we inherited the problems of having a career-centered lifestyle, which is our parents were away and very often divorced. We saw what led to the breakdown of our homes, the breakdown of our mental state, things like that, and we're trying to put a halt to it. We're saying that that shit simply is not cool. You're born, you're taken care of up to a certain age, then a big gap of your life, pretty much all of it, your adult life is consumed by slavery, and then a very small portion when you're drained, physically hurt, mentally you're beginning to decline, all that, that's when you're supposed to liberate yourself from this. I don't look at that as liberation. I look at that as you're no longer useful, you're no longer competitive, you're no longer productive, all you have under your belt is your experience. Can you pass it on to the new gen so that we can boot you faster? That's the way I see it. There's nothing honorable about that in my book, but maybe I just don't see the value because I'm not making that sacrifice. The sacrifice I'm making is I'm taking my chances by avoiding such a trap, by taking other hits instead, like financial instability, lacking benefits, all those things. But I'm like, why would I be afraid of not having those things when death is going to come for everybody? It's not like I gotta do this so that I have a chance at living longer. But for what? What is the point? Millennials in the United States were ready to step back from their desks. They would rather take a 20% cut to achieve a lifestyle that prioritizes quality of life, which is 5% more than the global average. US millennials are the most willing among their generational cohorts. Just 33% of baby boomers were willing to take that salary cut, while 43% of Gen X and 56% of Gen Z agreed. And I think that with boomers, maybe that small percentage, this is probably an unfounded bet, but I want to say that maybe that 33% are the folks who, I'm thinking of it one of two ways. Either they dedicated their lives to being defined by their career and then they forgot to live, meaning that they didn't get to do things, they didn't get to have families, or they didn't get to be there with family, they didn't get to be there with spouses. What was the cost, pretty much? And maybe they have had time to reflect on what it actually means and costs to go your whole life like that. Whereas others, maybe that percentage is not higher because the others may be more focused, more impressed by their lifetime of achievements and sacrifice and service. They're seeing how it materialized and they're focusing on that. And maybe they were folks who had the family, had the spouse, and they paid the price because they valued their career better and somehow they're content with the way things are. Or maybe they're like, well, I built all this, I don't get to enjoy it, I won't be around much longer, but at least I see how this has an impact on the generations that follow me. I don't know. That would be a nice question to ask maybe like 10 of them in my local place. But I can tell you, the boomers I work with definitely don't look very happy. They went through things in their lives to where some of them I didn't even meet that they had worked at where I work at before. They came back and a lot of in-between events happened in the years that they were gone, and now all of a sudden they have to come back. What happened? The things that happened to them were messed up. Some of it was lost businesses, some of it was divorces that forced you to move to another place and then another place, stuff like that. But what caused that? What led to that? I can guarantee you that work has a lot to do with a lot of people's problems. I know for me it was. Like, my mom's teaching job was super consuming. It stressed the fuck out of her. And then that stress was projected onto us. And my father, same thing. He married his job. He committed to his job in ways that I have never seen him commit to me or anyone else for that matter. None of his relationships ever worked afterward. That is a symptom of a bigger problem, but getting the person to acknowledge that is the challenging part. In the present, I see how, especially the folks I know in management, I see how they're drained. I see how their fitness is suffering here and there. I see they're aging. I see they're suffering. And some of them are my peers. And unfortunately, they look more tired than I am. And that's what I'm trying to avoid. I observed that. I was aware of that. That is the look of sacrifice on your face, on your skin. And I'm not saying that I cannot value that or respect that. I'm just saying that in the grand scheme of things, I don't think it's worth it. Because now you are paying with your health and well-being for a pursuit to be fulfilled with something that maybe down the line you'll realize wasn't worth it. For status, for material things, for money, all those invented social constructs. I don't get it. I honestly don't get it. Nobody can convince me that the things that we're coming up now in an effort to be innovative are things that are truly better for us, especially if things like our environment are paying the price. American millennials also outpaced other countries, including Canada, Mexico, China, and Australia. The only countries with more millennials willing to take a near quarter pay to prioritize their quality of life was Thailand at 70% and India at 69%. It also asked respondents if they believed a job that increases personal stress isn't worth it. In the United States, a whopping 79% of boomers said it wasn't worth it, followed by 72% of Gen Xers and 63% of millennials. And see, with baby boomers, that's what I would expect for them to say, because now they're hitting an age, a point in their life in which, this is going to sound very morbid to say, but they have more history behind them than time left alive. And that's what I'm saying. When you reach that stage in your life and you begin to reflect, if you're willing to, if you're brave enough to reflect objectively on those times, that can be very dreadful. I wanted to look at it as, even though I haven't been living the greatest life myself, taking the career cut, the pay cut, and everything, at least I can say that I don't have any regrets, because the only regret that I have is that other people don't see it like me. For instance, when I evaluate my father, when I evaluate my mom, when I evaluate my boyfriend, when I evaluate my brother, I'm like, all of them have like the same curse. It just manifests differently. And I'm the one suffering from it because I'm the one who can observe it and see it. And I tried to bring it to their attention, but they're so committed to this is the way. This is how we have to do things. This is just what has to be done. And we need the money. We need this. We need that. That weird fear that I asked them, okay, when will it be enough? Because I understand that life will continue to change and become more complicated, and your anxiety is you want to be comfortable and be prepared for the future and not find yourself needy, and especially when your body begins to crap out on you. But the problem is that right now, as of today, in the present, before your golden age, your golden years, you are already suffering prematurely, like way before your due time to be fucking tired, malfunctioning, your body crapping out, all those things. That's happening before your diagnosis with health issues. That's happening before you're due for that stuff, based off what seems to be the natural flow of things. Why do you refuse to confront that? Why do you refuse to face that? Why does the conversation offend you? And that's how I'm different from them. You guys know how I have said that I thrive in difficult conversations and dark stuff, challenging stuff, whereas others freak out. The overwhelmed folks, those who maybe when they hear topics like this, their fear of them not being enough kicks in, or having to be accountable for potentially being part of the cause of what's hurting you, that freaks them out. Whereas for me, it's like, that's where my surge of power comes from. Gen Z, who typically advocate for work-life balance, came in at 66%. The survey's findings aren't all that surprising. In September 2023, King's College London published a study that found millennials can care more about work-life balance than any other generation. And that makes sense, because millennials now, we're not exactly young anymore. We're like entering middle age. And I think that now we are able to express what it is from our life that didn't work out, what it is that we needed, that we didn't get, that would have made our lives better. CEO of the Culture Institute of Australia shared his predictions about what culture will look like by 2030. There may be more flexibility for employees, which is good news for younger generations. Employees will have more control in 2030 in terms of their work arrangements and decision-making processes. Self-management and self-managed teams will be the norm, not the exception as they are today. And see, that is why hustle culture became attractive, because it always seemed like you were in control. You could elect at what time you start doing your door dashing, your Uber, your selling of stuff, or say those who have the privilege of making good money through social media. That's what you roll with. You are the star, you have the say, and maybe a management team backing you up. But ultimately, you seem to be the one with the creative control and stuff. That is freeing, that is liberating. Most of the time, when you were in school, you were talked to in terms of this is what you should do, what you should study, so that you can make yourself attractive to companies. But no one ever talked to you about being an entrepreneur. No one ever talked to you about becoming your own boss, your own leader, what it costs for you to be under someone else's management, but what the possibilities are if you take control of things. That freedom, no one ever really talked about that. It was always about how you can be a part of something bigger than yourself. And that's why the other day I was saying, I genuinely do not understand the it's not about me. In my time frame, my timeline of time being alive. And hustle culture made it seem like it's optional for you. But the problem is that doesn't provide stability, the stability that traditional jobs provide, because we had to fight for that shit. It's not like these jobs that we have now just established themselves and they all thought about us and gave us benefits like that Kamala segment of you better thank a union member for sick leave. You better thank a union member for paid leave. You better thank a union member for vacation time. Because we couldn't consider that people get tired and people need time to recover and have other things to do. It's not work defining them, all that shit. It's not like the people who started all this thought about us like that. It was about their dream, their goal, and how other hands can make it possible for them, because we all just so happen to agree that those goodies that these folks were producing in like industrial times were things that we wanted. We wanted the ships, we wanted the planes, we wanted the phones, we wanted the cameras, we wanted the telecommunication, all of that shit. But no one was really thinking about, hey, maybe not all of us want to just dedicate to advancing things like that. Some of us may want to live a more chill life at home with pets, families, things like that. Not everyone is all about the whole grinding and all that. So that makes sense. It's not surprising. I think something that enabled this is the fact that we are so connected now. We have so much open communication now that you can tune in at any time, that this enabled people to really reflect on themselves a little more often. Whereas something like this in the past, maybe this is the kind of TV show that you may run into right before midnight when you know that most everybody has gone to bed who can tune into this. Now the ability to tune in to messages and ideas like this is everywhere at any time, and it is as flexible as hustle culture presents itself. I can see how it was attractive. He added that there will likely be more focus on mental health. I have no doubt that employee mental health will be a critical priority for all organizations by 2030. That doesn't surprise me because, like I have said before, about the folks who I have the privilege of working with, I have seen their deterioration. And some of them who used to not take meds before, all of a sudden are getting prescribed with meds. And at that point, I would sincerely advise them to just quit as opposed to staying, because this is just not worth draining your life. Even if you feel like this is all you have going for you and like this is providing for you and resolving your issues now, maybe you can find more support, or maybe adjust your lifestyle in a way temporarily to where you can find something that is better suited for you and better supports you. It's just not fair to see you wasting away and now you need medication that you probably wouldn't need if you experience being away from all this pressure. Remember your life before all of this shit happened. There was structure and order. Now there isn't. In your adult years, it's very hard to find things orderly. The workplace will shift away from a reactive approach, including therapy, and and instead focus on preventive measures like mindfulness training, which is funny because we were looking at that mindfulness app. And I guess that's the end of that one, you guys. That pretty much sums up everything I have to say on this one. I do agree. I think that the way that we work is problematic. Just like my boyfriend was saying the other day, he just out of nowhere said, "Man, America works hard, but we just don't have anything to show it." And it's true. Even if we may look uneducated, lazy, ignorant about, say, other cultures and things, maybe our drain and ignorance is the result of how stressed we are. Nothing in here seems to be working in good faith. Like, look at how predatory healthcare is. Look at how predatory landlords are. Look at how in bad faith companies operate, all in the name of profit. And look at schools and how they're deteriorating. This is not very founded on kindness, really. It seems to be founded more on competition, because competition is an emotion that's ingrained in us. Like, you gotta compete for mates, you gotta compete for food, you gotta compete for the best den here, the best place to establish your tribe and stuff. But if we're supposed to be more united now, united through language, through culture, through music, why is it that we're so dispersed? Why is it that we are so divided? Why is it that we simply refuse to accept that some things in here are messed up? Instead, we politicize the crap out of everything. I don't get it. Well, you guys, that's it for me. Feel free to say whatever it is that you want to say, add, agree, disagree with. The floor is open.